Okay, we are live, but we're letting it breathe just for a moment. We're going to graft in like a surgeon. We're doing like burn victim surgery here. We're grafting in the rest of our audience, our community over on Facebook. And we're good. So welcome in, everybody. It is the Huddle Up Podcast, presented as always by Mile High Huddle and powered by Blue Wire Podcast. I'm your host, Chad Jensen, with me, my fellow football priest, who you know, who you love, Zack Kelberman. Zack, a lot of nothing has happened since last we were on. I mean, there's been a few other names that have filtered out that came either Tuesday morning or late Monday after our last stream. But before we get to the Peyton Elway stuff, the latest you've heard on the coaching search, and specifically talk about that article you had that went haywire for MHH, talking about this potential combo of Nathaniel Hackett and the quarterback's coach, Getsy.
Yeah, first of all, I want to give George Paton the credit if he has this plan in place for the foresight. But Pro Football Network's Adam Beasley put it out there, and they reported that they have a real interest, the Broncos do, in hiring Nathaniel Hackett, the Packers offensive coordinator, as their next head coach. And they're also interviewing Luke Getsy, who's an assistant below Nathaniel Hackett, and that could be for an OC job. And having those two guys in place, confidants, coaches that Aaron Rodgers really trusts, really love. I just put something out on my Twitter of Aaron on the Pat McAfee show going to bat for both of them and advocating for them. If they get those two coaches, well, it paves the way for a potential trade for Aaron Rodgers this offseason, because the Broncos, according to Beasley, would love to make that deal. I don't know that it's all that realistic. A lot of things have to fall in place first. I think getting those two coaches is really realistic, but adding A-Rod onto that, Chad, is a whole other kettle of fish. And they're going to have to see what he does after the season, what he does this postseason, what he wants to do. But he loves these two guys. He's really, really, really big fans of Nathaniel Hackett and Luke Getsy. Thinks the world of them. He said it's a little overdue for Hackett's head coaching candidacy. So it could happen. I mean, if there's ever a chance Aaron's going to come to Denver, it would happen with Nathaniel Hackett and Luke Getsy on staff.
You got to think that Aaron Rodgers, regardless of how this particular season unfolds and ultimately resolves for the Packers, if the season ends and Aaron Rodgers looks around and sees that his offensive coordinator's gone, quarterback's coach is gone, and he's stuck with, because everything we've heard, no problem with Matt LaFleur per se. It's with the GM and ownership there, or not ownership, but executive chain, the executive branch of the Packers, but Brian Gutekunst, the GM. So maybe he looks around, Zach, Aaron Rodgers, after those two guys depart for greener pastures and go, you know what? I'm out. This only further solidifies to me the need to go finish my career somewhere else. Let's grab Tanner, who jumps in. Thank you, buddy. It's great to see you. It's been a minute. We're happy to have you back. Thank you for the very, very generous super chat. He says, what's up, Priest? So stoked to be back with you guys. In Peyton, we trust. Hashtag state of being. Hashtag Broncos for life. Great to have you back, buddy. And I'm glad you reached out last night, too, to give me the what's up, letting us know that you're coming back. Great to see you, Tanner.
George Payton's out here, Chad, conducting a coaching search and reworking contracts after bringing back Graham Glasgow on a reduced deal. I'm sure we'll get into that as the show goes on today. He really is a home run hire as general manager. And I'll say again, I think it's Elway's second best accomplishment after signing Peyton Manning as Broncos general manager, bringing aboard George Paton as his replacement. Speaking to Nathaniel Hackett, though, according to reports, they've done a lot of work on him as well. I mean, there's all these little breadcrumbs out there indicating it's really down to a two-horse race for Broncos head coach, and that's Nathaniel Hackett and Dan Quinn. Whoever I think interviews better between them is going to get the job. Interviews are coming up starting tomorrow, continuing, I think, through Saturday, and then they'll hopefully have a decision after that, maybe second round of interviews. I think it comes down to them, though. They're not bringing in Doug Peterson. I saw a thing about Brian Daboll in the comments. They're not interviewing him. Whoever they've already put in a request for is the candidate pool. They're not going to add to it. These are their guys. And one of those guys is the next Broncos head coach. And based on everything, I came away from Peyton's press conference thinking it's Dan Quinn, but everything I'm reading since and hearing since, Nathaniel Hackett's really got a shot, especially if Getsy comes aboard.
I think among the offensive-minded guys that the Broncos want to talk to, it's Hackett definitely has the edge, as you say. Quinn, I mean, that's just not a name that's going away, and nor should it, even though there's a part of me that would be slightly disappointed if the Broncos go with a third consecutive defensive-minded head coach. The more you dig into Dan Quinn, the more there is to like. He's a very intriguing candidate, and so long as he got the offensive coordinator hire right, which, listen to this, guys, this is how it could shake out. You could see, I know this is off a little bit different thread, Zach, than the Hackett-Getsy ticket, but you could see the Broncos hire Dan Quinn as head coach, and then Mason, I'm going to grab you right next, and then hire a Getsy away from Green Bay to be offensive coordinator. These are the type of things that happen. The Broncos pulled similar tactics way back during the Gary Kubiak hiring cycle, even though Cincinnati kind of blocked what they wanted to do with Vance Joseph. Teams do this all the time in order to get as much of a bead on the candidates as they possibly can, and sometimes to even get them to talk to you and allow a team to or for a team to allow them to talk to an outside suitor, Zach, they have to dangle the head coach opportunity, even though there's probably a pretty solid chance they're not really expecting Getsy to be that guy. Although Zach Taylor got a head coach job as a quarterback's coach. Something to consider, though.
That doesn't do it for me, though. Dan Quinn, Getsy ticket. Because Nathaniel Hackett, if he's brought aboard, he'd call his own plays. He would be the OC pretty much, and Getsy would be the Ed Donatel of offense, a figurehead, but he's the quarterback's coach right now and the passing game coordinator. That's a pretty good guy to have on staff who Aaron Rodgers thinks the world of. So even if they don't get A-Rod by hiring Hackett and Getsy, you still have two great up-and-coming coaches who a future Hall of Fame quarterback continues to go to bat for. I would love that. You can bring back Donatel as defensive coordinator. You can maybe plunder Brandon Staley's staff or a Vic Fangio holdover, maybe Bill Collar or Reggie Herring. You can keep the defense mostly in place. You have the players. You need that dynamic, innovative voice on offense. Dan Quinn, to me, is perfect for Chicago or Minnesota. Those jobs appeal to me for him.
Agreed. Guys, so much more to get to. Mason, we're going to grab you right on the other side of our matters of business. First, we got to say hello and thank you to the presenting sponsor of tonight's live stream podcast. And of course, that's Manscaped. Listen, each and every year, if you're a human being, the new year rolls around and you make that resolution. And hopefully this time around, you stick to the resolution. Well, let's hope one of those resolutions is about tightening things up relative to your manscaping. Keep it clean, keep it shiny. Our sponsors, Manscaped, are here to save your below the belt business this year and make the ball drop into 2022 the absolute cleanest it's ever been. Set your first New Year's resolution with good intentions, gang, and join the 4 million dudes worldwide who trust Manscaped with our exclusive offer. Go to manscaped.com and use the code MHH at checkout. You will get 20% off plus free shipping.
Yeah, it's new year, new me in Broncos country with the global leaders in below-the-waist grooming. This year, take your package to the next level with their Performance Package 4.0 and brand new Ultra Premium Body Wash. I want to point out something, though, Chad. I mean, you have the 4.0. I have another model from Manscaped. It works just as good. Holds a battery forever. But for anyone who's weirded out about below-the-waist grooming, it also works above the waist, well above the waist, on your face. I use it all the time. Anyone who has a beard that grows in pretty fast like mine, it's winter, you want to stay warmer right now around your face, this is the great tool for that. You get to take it in the shower with you. It's waterproof, has a little light, it's comfortable. I promise you, Manscaped's the way to go for any of your grooming needs.
I got to give them props, Zach. There's a lot of their little accoutrements that we tried last year, and I became a huge fan of and user of, have been home runs. They very recently came out with their body wash and the 2-in-1 shampoo conditioner, and I've been using it since we got the new sponsorship rolling. They sent us a new care package. I'm locked in for life. My wife loves this stuff, the way it smells. Can't speak high enough about the 2-in-1 shampoo conditioner. And then also, older I get, the more hair is growing out of places in my ears and nose, places that probably in a perfect world should not be growing out of. So guys, go get 20% off plus free shipping at manscaped.com. When you use the code MHH, that's 20% off plus free shipping at manscaped.com. Use the code MHH. It's a new year, new you. All right, Zach, let's grab Mason, who's been waiting patiently Very patient boy. Thank you, Mason. He says, excited to be able to catch the pod live again. I have no preference on who should be owner, just as long as it's stable. Also, thought SOB meant something else. Yeah, when we were talking about Vic Fangio, right? That get that SOB out of here is what some fans were saying. But yeah, dude, it's great to have you in the live chat. Thank you for that super chat, Mason. Zach, we'll talk about some Peyton Elway after we grab Orange Crush here. Thank you. Would love to have them in the same group with Elway handling the business side and Manning the football side, but I love having two shots at a Broncos legend as owner. So, guys, in case you missed it, all right, Woody Page reported early Tuesday, first of all, that right of first refusal lawsuit that the Ed Kaiser estate, that's the owner previous to Pat Bowlen, was dismissed by a Denver judge, all right, opening the way, free completely, Zach, of any legal entanglements. The Broncos, according to Joe Ellis, who put out a statement yesterday, are expected to announce a new owner on the very heels of, we're talking timeline, they're going to hire a new coach, and then back-to-back you'll hear news of a new owner/ownership group. Peyton Manning is one of, I think Woody Page reported 6 different groups that are going to bid on the Denver Broncos. John Elway's one in a different group. So they never got to play against each other, Zach, as players. John Elway was in his last year when Peyton was a rookie. And even though they were both in the AFC, schedules didn't meet up. They never played together as a team, as a GM quarterback combo. They brought home 4 AFC titles, 2 AFC titles, and a world championship. So, maybe there's an argument to be made, Zach, that, they're better as a team. But in this particular case, they are competing in a kind of Game of Thrones or a Clash of the Titans to secure Broncos ownership. It is exciting. I mean, one of the other 4 could get the bid, but these 2 are vying.
Well, I want to preface by this entire subject by saying, and I'm sure Scott will echo this in the pods ahead as well, it's not a topic that ever really burned up my skirt, so to speak, Chad. It never really did anything for me. Got my dander up, whatever cliche you want to use. I don't think the owner is as important as some Broncos fans are making it seem to be. I know it's an important factor. They have to have one. They will have one, but I'm just not that vested in the particular topic. It's cool, though, that a couple of franchise legends are squaring off, as you wrote there, or it's written there, for ownership of the franchise. Not maybe an outside source like a Robert Smith or a Jeff Bezos or Elon Musk, as it's been posited, but Peyton Manning or John Elway. I don't know where it's going to go. They could team up, or they could not team up. But the thing about what Joe Ellis said about expecting an announcement after the coaching search, is that for sure that it would be that a new owner's coming in, or maybe that they're opening it up for bidding? Because I felt like they can't announce anything until March at the earliest because of the owners' meetings.
Yeah, some of that stuff, you start getting into the legalese of the NFL, and I leave that kind of stuff up to the Nicky Jabbalas of the world and the Jeff Legwalds, because like you, I mean, there's certain things we need to know, and the things that we absolutely need to know in order to be able to competently pass on the news and our insights to you guys, we know. But some of that minutia and whatnot, we got fish to fry. Bottom line is John Elway, Peyton Manning, Zach are competing for a seat at the table to be the owner post Bowlen. Very interesting. Here's actually what Woody Page said. With the Bowlen-Kaiser lawsuit over, Broncos Joe Ellis will announce plan for a new ownership quickly. According to my sources, 6 candidates will bid. Peyton Manning and John Elway will be in 2 different groups. Another Colorado-based group is doing the research for the bid. So it's very interesting. The last valuation of the Denver Broncos, and yes, Rodney, in Peyton we trust, the last valuation according to Forbes, Zach, this team is worth $3.75 billion. Now, the NFL, they prefer that a singular owner comes to the table. But there's not too many people out there, Zach, that can check the box of being a billionaire with enough billions in the bank to buy a team and also want to buy an NFL club. I mean, it's a rare club being an owner in the NFL, but still, you kind of got to want to have that fire in your belly, even if it's not as a competitor. You got to want to pursue that as a business interest, because there's many. untold profits to be made, but it's a whole can of worms, right? And not all billionaires want to open that can of the worms. They're cool with their billions they got, that they built ostensibly anyway on whatever empire got them those billions. They don't necessarily want to go buy an NFL team. The odds of a singular individuals that coming to the table with 3.75, we'll see what the bid ultimately ends at, $1 billion to buy the team is unlikely. Let's just put it that way. I mean, it's not completely outside the pale, or beyond the pale. That's why you're seeing ownership groups. You know, Peyton Manning will throw in a little bit of scratch, John Elway in their respective groups. But Zach, I can't imagine that either of those guys could come up with the 30% required to be the controlling owner within a group. All right. So if you own at least 30% of the stake, all right, in your ownership group, you can be viewed through NFL rules as the controlling owner. Think of that, 30% of $3.7 billion. I don't think either one of them, as wealthy as they are, have that much money.
It's very much a liquid investment. And like you said, unless you're a billionaire in the stratosphere of Elon Musk or Jeff Bezos, that's going to take up a lot of your personal wealth. And they can't just make that a shiny investment like some owners can around the NFL. And most of these other owners, they bought the franchise looking back on it for pennies on the dollar. I think Jerry Jones bought the Cowboys for $78 million or something like that. And I think they're the richest franchise in sports now. So it's going to be a very hefty sale for anyone to take on. And I just think Ellis's announcement could be something a little more toned down, like they're going to explore outside candidates or it's up for sale. Not necessarily that something's completely imminent, but I could be wrong.
Let's grab Cody W. in the house. Good to see you, buddy. He says, what offensive coordinator won their division, beat Denver, the Raiders, and the Chiefs, and then smoked the Ravens twice? Sounds like a good candidate to me, but I do like Hackett. Brian Callahan, right? I think is who you're talking about. He's interesting. He's the last name to be added to that list of 10. And for what it's worth, the 10 that have been reported, Zach, those are the 10 that if there is going to be a report, it'll start there, because you don't need to get permission to request an interview with, say, Doug Peterson. If the Broncos were interested in interviewing Jim Harbaugh, currently head coach of the Michigan Wolverines, you would expect somewhere along the lines, I don't know if they need permission to talk. I guess he's under contract,
right,
but he's not in the league. So I don't know if they would need permission relative to league rules. League rules dictate you have to get the permission before you can. You know, going from NFL to college, I don't know if they are mandated, but I've heard things, and I don't know how true it is. All right, I really don't. It's a guy that's been right on a lot of different things for me in the past. He's based out of a city not too far from Denver. Long story short, though, Zach, Jim Harbaugh, I was told, don't completely write him up. I think there are other options in the hopper. Eric Bieniemy is a guy that right when Vic Fangio got fired, all right, I was saying, I don't know. Everything I've heard, Zach, all the skeletons in the closet, potentially from his time as a player. When he was assistant head coach under John Embry, the CU Buffs, man, they were a complete crap show. I would be stunned. And he goes, nope, the Broncos are interested in him. Watch, you're going to hear a report. Boom, sure enough, then out comes Eric Bieniemy as an interview for the Broncos. But a lot of interesting rumors flying around. I think the two main candidates to focus on are Quinn and Hackett, but the Broncos are going to try and talk to them all. We'll see if it shakes out. Like, think about that. George Payton said these initial interviews can take 5 to 7 hours, right? Times 10, you're talking more than 2 days of talking to guys. And that's if schedules line up perfectly, right? There's a chance they're not going to be able to get to everyone that they've actually officially requested interviews with. But I think it's Quinn, it's Hackett. Brian Callahan is interesting, but I think those two are at the top right now.
I would take Kevin O'Connell over Brian Callahan. Maybe that's just me. I just think he's more intriguing. But
me too.
I feel like if the Broncos were interested, they would have made it known. They would have put in a request, or we would have heard some sort of report or rumor about Jim. We've heard nothing about Harbaugh. We've heard pretty much nothing about Doug Peterson, Leslie Frazier, Jim Caldwell. Some of these guys that were speculated never turned out to be anything, and they can't wait at this point. George Payton moved really, really quick to get rid of Vic Fangio and conduct this coaching search. He set up 8 interviews in like 24 hours. He wants his guy in the building. He's not going to wait any longer. So again, whoever's in the candidate pool is in that pool. They're not going to, I don't see adding anyone else into it. Jim Harbaugh.
I just don't know feasibly how you could, Zach. I mean, You want to be doing interviews till the cows come home? Like, figure out. I think it's great that they're casting a wide net. Don't get me wrong, but I'm talking from a pragmatic, how are you going to get it done type perspective. Unless a lot of these are going to be done via Zoom or telephone or whatever, I don't see it's just going to be hard even with the 10 they have. Dave Glassman, appreciate you, my friend. It's a gentle, not so subtle, but gentle still reminder. Broncos Book Club, which I think we've missed the last 2 Saturdays, but we've had things cooking. We had a Bronco game on one of those days, and then I was out of town the other one. It'll return this weekend. Let not your heart be troubled. Shane Daniels and Zach, we're continuing to read, by the way, Slow Getting Up by Nate Jackson. Phenomenal book. What were you going to say?
I want to just make a point, though, about the Bieniemy interview. There could be legitimate interest, but it could be a case where they want to scout a rival and maybe glean some information about how they operate. It's no skin off George Payton's teeth. He's already conducting a boatload of interviews. Eric Bieniemy, if he wows him, great. If not, he learns a little more about the Chiefs' inner workings. So that could be a case for people like Jonathan Gannon, Aaron Glenn, Gerard Mayo. He wants to learn about how some of these other teams operate. I wouldn't put all your hopes into one basket, except for Hackett or Quinn at this point.
Of all the candidates, he's the guy I just don't get. Him and Aaron Glenn. Two kind of, even though from an age perspective, Aaron Glenn's got, a decade on Jonathan Gannon. From an experience perspective, they're pretty much equals in terms of year one as defensive coordinators. I don't understand either one of those, except for, as you say, Zach, either to hold maybe a different position with a modest kind of title upgrade in Denver for whoever the real head coach ends up being, or as some kind of, intelligence gathering operation to learn a little bit. But what do you need to glean about the Detroit Lions? What do you need to glean about
how to bite kneecaps?
Right. We're biting kneecaps over here. Real quick, we're going to grab Shane, but I just want to let everybody know on our goal in January to reach 250,000 stars on Facebook, we're at 32%. When we reach that goal, we're going to raffle off a Broncos jersey of the winner's choosing, and the only people in the running for that raffle are the great members of our community who have contributed to the goal. Here's the rankings on that, guys. Miguel at the top. Very cool, Miguel. Thank you. Shane, the aviator, as you can see on screen twice right now. Jacob Foster, Doug Raquel, Travis Weber, Andrew Baker, Jermaine Daughtry, Michael Ronquillo, Pete Middleton, and Joshua Mize round out the top 10, and some obviously familiar names just outside the top 10. Let's see what is on the aviator's mind. Shane says, I'm leaning towards Hackett for head coach, but I have a feeling Dan Quinn is the front runner. P.S. Rooting for Manning in the ownership deal, LOL. What are opinions on the ownership issue? If you said, all right, gun to your head, Jensen, you want the ownership group under Peyton to win, you want the ownership group under Elway to win, it's easy to just say, oh, time to turn the page. We want new blood, Peyton Manning. But at the same time, I think if the Broncos were purchased by the group that John Elway is involved with, Zach, I don't think he would plan to be anything more than what he is right now, which is top of the mountain, 10,000-foot guy. You need me, call me. Marcus, good to see you, buddy. Thank you. In the UK, you the man. I don't think he's going to be a guy that wants to be down there grinding anymore. Everybody I talk to, he really is ready to kind of ride off into the sunset in terms of the grind. Peyton Manning, though, you get that vim and vigor, right? This would be something utterly new to him. He'd be competing once again, even as an owner. And I think you could see some of that Peyton magic. The Elway name and the Elway thing has magic. We've seen it. He's brought home 3 world championships to this city, to this team, to this fan base, which is worldwide. I don't want to dismiss that as if it's nothing, Zach. Like Elway has done nothing, even as a GM or an executive for this team, but it's kind of worn out its welcome, so to speak. So if I had to err on the side of either, man, I'm kind of torn on that. What's your answer?
I'm taking Peyton Manning all day, and here's why. Even if Elway is not involved in day-to-day operations as the owner or part of the ownership group, he's still going to be that ominous figure looming over the franchise. And I think it's time now. He needs to, if he's going to be out of the picture, if he's relinquishing GM duties and day-to-day football operations, he needs to get out of the way completely. No half measures when it comes to Elway's exit. You want to go spend time with your grandkids, go spend time with them. Don't keep hovering around the organization. Otherwise, I don't think it can ever be anybody else's. I don't think it can ever be truly George Payton's franchise to operate within. When you're coworker, let's say your peer or your equal, now becomes your owner. I don't think that's a great environment. So I'm Peyton Manning all day.
Doug says, I would agree with Peyton and George Peyton being Elway's best decisions. Death by Miles, he said, I saw an article that we're also going to interview Vance Joseph. Is there any truth to that? No.
Dolphins are, but not the
Yes,
Broncos.
exactly. He's garnered exactly one interview request, to my knowledge, up to this point. So,
time of his life.
Time of his life in that interview, let me tell you. Good to see you, David. Thank you, bro. He's all for Nathaniel Hackett. That's cool. Dwayne, appreciate that super chat, my friend. He says, Dan Quinn's offensive coordinator and offensive track record is rather impressive. Could be the best of both worlds? ? Outside of Kyle Shanahan,
right.
What are you talking about,
right?
Dude? What are you talking about?
Right.
Kyle was there in 15, or was he in there? Was he there in 15? He was there in 16. Now I got to pull it up. I want to say he had Kyle for either 1 or 2 years in Atlanta. Scott knows, but let's see real quick, Zach. I'm pulling up Kyle Shanahan wiki. So he was Atlanta offensive coordinator the first 2 years that Quinn was there. After that, it's not like they fell off a complete cliff because you had Matt Ryan, but it was never even close to the same. And they had a lot of talent on that side of the ball for a stretch there before people started getting old. And Quinn just couldn't make hay. Zach.
I was going to say, like, Kyle Shanahan was going to be great no matter who he was with or what coach picked him. And add on to that, you had Matt Ryan playing still in his prime with Julio Jones, and you had Devontae Freeman, I believe, back then. You had some really good players on that side of the ball. So I wouldn't lean on his OC track record as a means to hire Dan Quinn. If you're going to hire Dan Quinn, it means he's the best leader. He's going to get the most out of the defense, and he's going to be the mature guy to whip the Broncos into shape and focus on all sides of the ball and just be what George Peyton expressed in the press conference. But in terms of what he's done in the past, leaning on Kyle Shanahan's laurels, that's not a reason to hire Dan Quinn.
Bryce, thank you for the super chat, my friend. And by the way, if you're a Superstar supporter on Facebook or a Super Chat Superstar, reach out to us on Twitter. Make sure we are connected. Give us a follow. Do one of these in our mentions so we know who you are, because if you are a Super Chat Superstar or Star supporter or subscriber, we will follow back, because we like to tag and thank and shout out our supporters after each and every stream. All right, so Bryce, if you're on Twitter, reach out to Zach and myself and do one of these. He says, my guy is Hackett. Does Bieniemy have a shot? Yeah, he has a shot. He has a shot. And where once I doubted the realism, Zach, of him being a viable option in Denver, no longer do I. But it's going to be interesting to see timing-wise on any of these guys. I mean, first of all, with a lot of them, you're vying with other teams who want to also interview while they're also locked in the playoffs and have fish to fry, right? That has to be their primary focus. So timeline-wise, you know, a young coach, for example, that's getting his first opportunity to be a head coach, if one team offers him that gig and they hadn't quite yet had a chance to interview with the Broncos, they're not waiting, dude. They're taking that job just because it's life-changing money. There's only maybe 2 names on that list that I could see being picky and choosy if a team straight up offered it to him. Maybe 3. The 2 Cowboy coordinators, maybe Hackett. I don't think anyone else on that list, Zach, has enough juice to risk not accepting an offer. So there's maybe Bieniemy. But there's no guarantee that the Broncos will be able to get in front of each and every one of these guys before someone else does. So it'll be interesting to see how it shakes out.
Well, I'm just impressed that Peyton gave Bieniemy an interview, because that's something we were screaming for in 2019 with Vic, and they didn't give him a shot. So a couple thoughts about him. Could be a Rooney Rule situation. They have Aaron Glenn as well to fulfill that. He doesn't interview well. That was the bugaboo with Eric Bieniemy. He turned a lot of teams off. So I don't think George Payton, if he wants a leader, if you can't even win your interview, how are you going to win over a team? So, and the other rumor is that Kansas City wants to preserve Mike Kafka and kind of let Eric Bieniemy go. They rather have Kafka in the building. I wouldn't want someone else's leftovers. I'd rather go for the guy that Aaron Rodgers is rooting for, and Nathaniel Hackett and Luke Getsy. That combination. Eric Bieniemy would be like 4th on my list right now.
JJ, what's up, buddy? Thank you. He says, hey, guys, I'm good with Hackett, but not the cost of Rodgers. In other words, what it would take to get Rodgers. That's a whole conversation we'll have to circle back to another time. Albert Getsy relative to quarterbacks, young quarterbacks. I think the only skin he might have on the wall is Jordan Love, and we haven't quite been able to see much in the way of really how far developed he is. But he's helped elevate Aaron Rodgers back into MVP status late in his career, and that's got to count for something. Rodney, I believe George Paton will kill the draft and free agency. Go Broncos. Let's hope so. I mean, he killed the draft last year. There were some free agent and trade moves that, in hindsight, I don't think he was as obviously successful with his free agent moves, Zach, as he was in the draft. But I got nothing but high expectations now for what George Paton can do as a draft artist.
The only one I think he whiffed on was Kyle Fuller, but even that was my favorite signing that he made in the offseason. Other signings that he brought players he brought aboard, Mike Boone wasn't used by Pat Shurmur. That's not on George Paton. That's on the coaching staff. I thought Shamar Stephen was a great pickup. I thought he filled the roster out really well, but where he killed it was the draft. And you're setting the team up for long-term success when you have foundational building blocks like George Paton imported. I thought he had a fantastic first year, and I thought he's off to an amazing start in year 2.
I do too. I mean, I think he had a good year overall. I wasn't huge, and to this point, I'm still a little ambivalent on the Darby deal.
Yeah.
Because even though Darby kind of steadied and solidified down the stretch,
There's like a
he got hurt
slightly
again.
better AJ Boye.
Yes. So he started hurt and he ended hurt, and they paid him some serious dollar bills. And I think the Teddy trade was a big reason why that season ultimately is going to go into the dustbin of history. It wasn't all on Teddy. That's not what I'm saying. I'm just saying that it colored the water, so to speak. It muddied the water is what I'm looking for in terms of should have had clarity at quarterback. Instead, it turned into this faux quarterback competition that I now, in hindsight, in retrospect, don't believe was a true 50-50 competition. Created weird expectations and juju in the fan base. And I think this team probably would have been better going out and just signing a similar caliber quarterback that was on the street to come be your insurance instead of this forced fake, we're going to have him compete thing when Vic Fangio was obviously desperate to save his job.
I'm not putting Teddy Bridgewater on George Paton in the least. Vic Fangio and Pat Shurmur were forced on George Paton. His hands were tied. His coaching staff likely went to him and said, listen, this is the quarterback that we want. We don't like Drew Lock. We're not going to start him. Go get us Teddy Bridgewater. And Paton, being a rookie general manager, still learning on the job, he fulfilled that. He did his job to create a quarterback competition. It's not his fault the coaches bungled the quarterback competition. I would honestly give George Paton an A for year 1.
I don't know. That might be something you and I disagree on, how much of whose fingerprints were ultimately on the Teddy Bridgewater trade. That's up for debate, but that's neither here nor there in this very moment.
Some of his were, but I think ultimately that was more of a Vic Fangio call. For the reason that you mentioned, to save his own job, and Pat Shurmur as well.
Thank you, Jacob. Good to see you, bro, in the chat. Really appreciate you. Michael Ronquillo says, Hackett is my pick for the Broncos. Seeing a lot of that from the community mavens, Zach. It's all about Hackett. Beto, good to see you, Beto. Guys, I know Rodgers is what fans want, but he's older. They would be mortgaging the future and would be right back here looking for another quarterback and head coach. Definitely the quarterback side, but, Tom Brady, Peyton Manning first, and then Tom Brady. I guess you could maybe credit old Vinny Testaverde for really pushing the envelope on the I want to play till I'm 90.
Hit me right there.
But Peyton Manning set a new kind of, not a new precedent so much, rather he kind of kindled, I think, a new fad almost for these future Hall of Fame guys. Like if Big Ben had any juice left in the tank, wouldn't surprise me if at some point late in his career he wanted to maybe see if he could do it somewhere in another city. Tom Brady following suit, kind of copying Peyton Manning. I want to go prove that I'm as good, if not better. In the world championship department, we know the answer to that. But as a quarterback, I want to go prove that I can win somewhere else too, that I'm not dependent on this one little city. I could see Aaron Rodgers, in other words, this long spiel, coming to Denver, 3-year minimum, like a 3-year floor. Like it's going to be a deal similar to Peyton's when he signed here in 2012. Probably 5 years with a realistic expectation of him fulfilling 3 of them. and then from there it's kind of let's take it as we go.
Well, first of all, Rodgers is older, yes. You wouldn't be getting like a Deshaun Jackson guy in his prime, still has 10 years left. He has maybe 3 or 4 years, 5 years tops of high-level play. But that play is really high level. Maybe back-to-back MVPs, maybe Super Bowl champion. The guy right now is the best quarterback in the NFL. So let's say you acquire him and you don't reach a Super Bowl in that window. Well, if Nathaniel Hackett and Luke Getsy and company are all they're cracked up to be, you can develop your next quarterback while you have Rodgers, like these other teams have done. Look what the Kansas City Chiefs did. Look what Green Bay did with Rodgers and Brett Favre. You always want to have the guy you pass the mantle off to, not scramble every offseason to put a Band-Aid over the bullet hole, to use your famous expression, Chad. So that's the ultimate goal here. If Nathaniel Hackett is the guy, well, he'll have Rodgers, or if he busts or doesn't get Rodgers, you feel comfortable with him developing who's ever on the roster, whether it's Drew Lock or rookie quarterback or anybody else.
If that guy can get that hype over selling a handoff, dude, imagine some of the other intricacies of the quarterback position.
He'd be rapping on the sideline with Drew Lock.
Probably, dude.
Love it.
Probably. He's like, what's on your playlist today? Let's jam it. Casey Nickel, what's going on, big dog? Great to see you. Thank you for the super. He says, in that interview with Pat McAfee, Aaron Rodgers didn't dismiss anything about not going to Denver. He didn't confirm it either. But, hey, tinfoil hat on, also Manning for owner. Yeah, can neither confirm nor deny. But, Zach, he's in the playoffs with the Packers. If he didn't have that PR controversy relative to his V status earlier this year, he'd be shoe-in MVP this year, like in the hearts and minds of everybody is, I guess, what I'm getting at. He's not going to say, yeah, I can't wait till this season's over, Pat. I'm going to Denver, dude. A, he doesn't control it 100%. B, it would just be very atypical for a franchise classy ambassador type that we know Aaron Rodgers is. He's not going to let on any of that stuff, even if it were all perfectly true that he's dying to come to Denver.
Well, Chad, he could have said, no, I'm happy in Green Bay. He could have just easily shot it down, but he didn't do that. I'm going to have the story from Mile High Huddle after the podcast, and I was tweeting about it. When they asked him about the possibility of hiring Nathaniel Hackett and Getsy and importing him, he made a joke about his teammates' clothing line. He never once mentioned, no, I'm happy in Green Bay. No, he laughed even. So I'm right there with that tinfoil theory. I want to read a couple quotes, though, Rodgers had about Hackett. He said what he did in Jacksonville was pure magic. People forget what he did with Blake Bortles. He gets no credit for that. He said it's legendary. He had them within 1/4 of the Super Bowl. He's a great coach. I love spending time with him. He's a great teacher. He's incredible in front of the room. Here's Rodgers on Luke Getsy. Fantastic coach, really good teacher of the game. These are two guys that would be monumental, incomprehensible upgrades on Pat Shurmur. And getting either of them would be a boon for the Broncos. Getting both would be fantastic.
Just getting that juice, man. Just getting a coach or two on that side of the ball that has some energy, man, some passion, let alone, hey, throw something modestly innovative out there on the grass. The God King himself, Mark Langley, a.k.a. Mark from Georgia. He's known by many monikers as legendary figures, often are, Zach, but top rope. There he is, Mark Langley. What's up, my guys? Go Dogs. Congrats on that, by the way. Go Broncos 2022. Great to see you, Mark. Hope the fam's doing well. Give our best to Penny.
Mark, it literally leaves me speechless. When I see these generous showings of support, it's Mark Langley. So thank you so much. Hope you're having a great night, and appreciate you as always. And Michaela.
And the Duchess as well. 2 Mount Rushmore Super Chat Superstar members of our community. We got the awesome opportunity to hang out with Michaela back in September. Next year, we'll get that same chance with Mark. In fact, I've had a lot of people reaching out, hey, you guys were going to do the draft, meet and greet at the draft in 2020 before the old pandemic hit. You going to do that again this year? Because, heading back and all that. We haven't ruled it out, but it depends on how for lack of a better term, the CV thing unfolds. If there are restrictions and stuff like that, might not make any sense. It might not make much sense for us to go down there and do that. But If it's kind of like it was in September, Zach,
Where is the draft this year? Is it Cleveland?
Hold on.
Or was it in Cleveland?
No, I don't want
to. Is it in Vegas? Because they didn't hold it in Vegas a couple of years ago.
That's that.
Okay.
I want to make sure I'm not tripping.
I think
dude.
I'm right about that. They skipped. They changed it. Which it was dope. They had this setup where like it was over water and the players were coming via boat. Like I wanted to see that up close.
Yeah, it
for
is
sure.
Las Vegas. All right. I was like,
Yeah,
because when you questioned that, I was like, wait a minute, am I tripping?
We're definitely going.
So let's just hope the old pandemic slows down a little bit between now and then so that there aren't restrictions that would negate the whole point of us doing a meet and greet. But the Duchess, Michaela, love you. Thank you so much. So generous. She says, I am torn between Hackett and Quinn. Experience versus young and exciting. I think I would go for Hackett because he is an offensive guy. And then, of course, Peyton Manning for owner.
Agreed.
Here's the thing, though. If I've done a lot more research on Quinn, I mean, I knew his bona fides, obviously, like his resume, right? But I've done a lot more research on Dan the coach, Dan the man, Dan the reputation, all that stuff. And there's a lot to like about Dan Quinn, dude. A lot to like about Dan Quinn. I mean, anytime you see a coach, this is like a little litmus test, Zach. When you see a coach holding forth in his press conference, whether it's a head coach or an assistant, and every time he gets a question, and because when let's just say you're watching a press conference from home on your phone, you don't know who's asking those questions. You hear a voice, question gets asked, the guy answers it, right? Well, Quinn always uses that person's name first and foremost. So if Zach's asking that question, he's going to go, Zach, you know what? Let me tell you, blah, 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 blah. And there's a, what's a good one?
It's endearing. It
is endearing, but it's also a human communication tell. It often tells this person that does that is a conscientious person, leader, a person that cares about how other people feel, again, conscientious, and relative to how that fits into a tapestry of leadership, command, because a leader can't just be someone that says, follow me or else, right? A leader has to inspire someone to follow him. And Dan Quinn is that type of guy. You know, he is that type of guy where he knows everyone's name in the building, probably knows what their kids, you know, where they're going to school, wife's names, things like that. So he's a very interesting guy, but I still worry that if they go Dan Quinn, they're letting the NFL pass him by once again.
You know, I'm not going to lie, after I knew he was a great coach in Seattle, but I kind of chalked that up to the talent he had around him. I kind of thought he was a buffoon as the Falcons head coach. I didn't put too much stock in Dan Quinn, but fortunately, covering the Cowboys this past season, I have a ton of respect for him. And let me tell you, I would take Dan over a lot of other candidates on the Broncos list. Not over Moore, not over Hackett, not over maybe O'Connell, but definitely over someone like Aaron Glenn or Jonathan Gannon. The Broncos could do a lot worse than Dan Quinn. You'd be getting a natural-born leader. Everyone buys into his system. If you ever watch a Cowboys game, he's up in the press box, which I'm not crazy about, but he has the hat backward. He's always standing up. He's always like a kid out there. That you want that energy. It's infectious. When he was the interim head coach this season, led the Cowboys to a victory over the Saints in a primetime game, he was standing outside the locker room, personally greeting and congratulating every single player. Didn't matter if it was Dak Prescott or the punter. That is a leader. That's the opposite of what Vic Fangio was. It's not my number one preference, but I can certainly get behind a Dan Quinn hire.
That childlike enthusiasm and just zeal and love for the game, that is something I think everyone can appreciate in a coach or player, unless it's Drew Lock, right? If it's Drew Lock, then it's a sign of something like wrong with this cat. The Boogmeister, what's up? He says, what's up, guys? Haven't been on a live for a bit. I know we'll get the right head coach in OC this time around. By the way, George Peyton guaranteed it. So, but I hope we don't step back on the defensive side. And that's something that Peyton addressed head on. He's like, look, we want to obviously, resurrect our offense from 6 feet under, but we also don't want to take a step back defensively. And I think his ace in the hole on that front is like, his just in case, his security, his insurance policy is holding on to Ed Donatel till they ultimately resolve who's going to be the head coach. Because if I'm Nathaniel Hackett, who knows? Maybe I'm predisposed to a certain name out there. But a lot of those names that I may have come in contact with that would be great for a defensive coordinator probably are defensive coordinators somewhere in the league. If I get hired by the Denver Broncos and George Payton says you get Ed Donatel, who has been the number one lieutenant to Vic Fangio, the guy whose defense is, the latest thing right now in the NFL, and I'm Nathaniel Hackett, a first-time head coach, offensive-minded guy, I'm going, yeah, let's go. I'm down for Ed Donatel. I'll give it a whirl, see how it goes. But that's a priority for what it's worth, Boogmeister. Look, you can't always get everything you want, right? You can't have your cake and eat it too all the time. You can't go get the best freaking offensive coordinator out there to come be your head coach and turn that ship around and then expect to have like perfect transfer of defense.
Right.
There will be gives and gets, for lack of a better term, right, that are going to occur, especially when you have a change in regime like this. But you can only hope that they don't take, such a step back, Zach, that it's catastrophic. But you get an offense going, takes so much pressure off that defense, dude. This defense has had to be the tip of the spear for 7 years now, since 2015. I'm counting the Super Bowl year that they're tired of having to be that tip of the spear. You get a little offense going, Zach. You get a few points on the board in the first half. I mean, I know you take your hat off and go, imagine that, getting points on the board in the first half, what that could do for a defense. All right, I'm being a little hyperbolic here, but you get my point.
Yeah, I'm right there with you. It would change the whole complexion of every single Broncos game. But I'm aiming a little higher than Ed Donatel. Who even is Ed Donatel? What is Ed Donatel? I've never really even seen him on game days. I'm half joking here when I say this, but maybe someone like Gerard Mayo as DC, maybe Mike Zimmer as DC, the connection to George Payton. Ed Donatel to me is a plan C, but I'm right there with you. The defensive personnel and the scheme that they've already instilled, they can maintain or retain Bill Collar, Reggie Herring to have some sort of continuity from the Fangio era. To me, though, it's more important to get that offensive coaching hiring down, because that's the rawer unit. That's the clay that you want to mold, and you need the right guy to mold that clay. You can argue that Dan Quinn wouldn't be the right guy, and someone like Hackett would.
Rodney Garcia, what's up, buddy? Thank you. He says, let's just hope what Joe Ellis said. Broncos fans will be inspired to return back to the stadium and to support to Broncos country. Yes, indeed. David says, who are the other groups besides Elway and Manning? Well, don't know. I haven't heard any intel on that front. Probably won't know until the bid itself gets a little bit closer. Travis Weber, good evening, Chad and Zach. Good to see you, by the way, big dog. Elway kind of blew it when he turned down Pat, when he offered him 25% ownership or something like that. It's not exactly how it went down, but there was a big snag in the form of the Kaiser estate having a more legitimate say for right of first refusal at that time, and that was quite disincentivizing for John Elway. I don't know if Elway or Manning will come up with the capital. It also is kind of sad that fans have gone from the team, from Team Teddy, Team Lock to now Elway versus Manning. It's just the way it's going to go. But imagine this. You talk about like big egos, right, Zach, and like how ego can make one petty if one allows it. Could Peyton Manning countenance being confused with the GM? Peyton? Scott brings this up. It's a good point. Who are you talking about? You talking about George? So then you're going to have to go from George, start calling him George and Manning, right? To make sure everyone knows who they're talking about. I'm taking this to the absolute logical extreme here, but something to ponder.
I'm going George Paton, like his name is spelled out. I'm going to jump over that hurdle while I can. I would like it to happen. In terms of the other ownership groups, the only thing we've really heard other than a Bolin or Elway or Manning was Robert Smith, the Denver billionaire. Mm-hmm. We don't know how much interested he still is, but I guess that will be revealed in the weeks ahead.
All right, let's see where we're at. We're at 49 minutes. We got to start winding her down here. Claude jumping in. Great to see you, big dog. He says, time to get this glorious ship back on track. Yes, indeed. And that's why, again, I love that George Payton guaranteed this will be the right move. And so far, what you've seen from him and the comprehensive net with which he's cast to try and ensnare as many possible candidates as possible leads me to believe he could be freaking right, dude. He might get this. He might actually be the guy to finally get this right for the Denver Broncos. And I just love, this is the third time I've said it now on a podcast, I love a leader who's willing to take that level of expectation and onus and pressure and put it on himself like that. It's just, to me, it resonates. Phil, Bronco Nation, faux pas there, big dog, but we're not here, we're not going to be hooty snooty about Bronco Nation.
People go crazy over that, though.
Bronco country.
On social media, it's a big deal.
It is. It gets a little redonk. But in Tucson, like Michael Ronquillo, wondering what your opinion is on D.E. Kongbo. Seems like a good backup BFL MHH.
I got you, Chad. The Broncos signed, I think it's Jonathan Kongbo, to a future deal. I have the story about the futures contracts. They signed 7 players yesterday. They signed another one today. I'm going to have the write-up for the website coming out tonight or tomorrow. But what I know about him offhand, I can't say I'm the biggest Jonathan Kongbo fan, Chad, but he's a 2-time, I think, CFL champion in the Canadian Football League. So a developmental prospect to keep in mind as they go forward. Still, obviously, super early in the process, but he will be on the 90-man off-season roster. We know that.
So Kongbo is, let's see, where'd he go to school? Tennessee. And he was a CFL first-round pick for what it's worth. I mean, that's like, 8th-round pick in the NFL. But he was a Niners practice squad guy in 2020, signed a reserve future contract with the Niners of that year, was waived on the cutting room floor, the final cuts before the regular season. And since then, he's a 2-time Grey Cup champion, Zach. So he's brought home the bacon for his respective football teams up there north of the 49th parallel. Jay Milzo Ryan, another newer name. So welcome, big dog. Thank you. Didn't Doug Peterson leave the Eagles because of upper management and also Wentz? Wouldn't Doug be the best bet since he's won a Super Bowl and is an excellent play caller? I'd love it, dude. I would love Doug Peterson to be in the building in strong consideration. Zach and I don't perfectly share a brain on this, but here's what I put my feelers out to try and find out what the Sam Hill happened for a guy who won a Super Bowl and 3 seasons later dismissed with prejudice. And long story short, the owner there wasn't allowing him to make all the decisions on his coaching staff. And he had been told from the time he was hired as Andy Reid's offensive coordinator to go be the head coach in Philly that he would have say and influence, Zach, on the free agent acquisitions, on the draft picks. And he was continually iced out. And he felt, especially after he got that ring, that should have afforded him a little bit more, bigger seat at the table. And they just kept stiff-arming him. So the Jeffrey Lurie and Howie Roseman, they just weren't having it. And meantime, he presided over the disintegration, complete unraveling of Carson Wentz. And that was enough for them to say, you know what? There's not going to be any PR blowback if we fire the only head coach in the history of our club that's brought home a world championship, and the rest is history.
But was Carson Wentz disintegrated? Look at the football he played with the Colts this year. He was one of the best quarterbacks in the NFL. I'm not going to deny that Peterson is a good coach, but I don't know where the reverence for him really comes. The defense played great that year. Nick Foles it was a unicorn type year. It was a perfect storm for Philadelphia in so many ways. So Peterson played a part, but his assistants who he had on staff, the players, just the ultimate convalescence that happened that year. Then there was also the falling out apparently he had with some of his coaches or with the front office, like you laid out. He condoned an environment that was toxic in many levels with Alshon Jeffrey and Wentz and the anonymous leaks with Josina Anderson from ESPN back then. And also, he always struck me kind of like a cheesy kind of guy. Like ice cream days he would have at the end of meetings. I mean, I don't want a guy who sat on his couch last year. Nathaniel Hackett's been in the NFL. For an example, Hackett, he's been seeing the recent trends of the sport year to year, hasn't taken any time off. His star is rising. You don't want a guy whose star is already risen. You want a guy whose star is still rising. And I'd rather go with the upside in this hire for once with Hackett.
Rob is it Buxbaum or Baum? Boobaum? Pardon me if I'm butchering your name. Help us get it right. Tell us the phonetics, all right, in the chat. But thank you for that super chat. He says, long-time lurker, first-time commenting. Awesome, dude. Appreciate you. Zach, I've followed you since the 24/7 days. Living in Nashville, assuming we have a first-round pick, your choice for best position to draft, or is it BPA? Hashtag United in Orange. Zach?
Rob, thank you, first of all, so much. That's amazing support, and we appreciate
OG.
Yeah, seriously. Any of you 24/7 guys and gals are incredible.
Mark Langley, another one of the 24/7 OGs.
And the Queen, wherever she may be right now.
Mm-hmm.
We have I never advocate drafting for need. So regardless, BPA is the way you want to go. Whether it's a quarterback, right tackle, edge rusher, inside linebacker, what have you, whoever is the highest, the best player on your board at that given time has to be the selection. I'm going to say, though, you can't neglect right tackle. I know edge rusher right now is the popular mock to the Broncos, considering Chubb and Malik Reed, Cooper, and the uncertainty there. But when's the last time the Broncos invested serious draft capital in a right tackle? It's been years, and they can't. I mean, you're having to think about it, which is a problem in itself.
Maybe Orlando Franklin as a second-round pick back in 2011.
That's a decade. You can't wait that long in today's NFL. If you want someone like Rodgers or even a rookie quarterback, you have to protect him. So right tackle to me is still probably, right now, it's still early, but that's my number one.
And, we don't need to go too far down this rabbit hole, but BPA versus need, it's always errs on the side of need. It's just the way it goes, guys. They take the best player available at the positions that they need. If you've got Steve Young and Joe Montana on your quarterback depth chart, right? And I'm going to botch this. And freaking, Andrew Luck falls into your lap on the draft board. You're not taking Andrew Luck. Travis Weber. My question, though, is there a rift between Elway and Manning as to why they are in separate groups to becoming possible owners? Rift? No. Personal interest? They just both have their own interest here. They're not, once the contracts end, dude, like they're friends, they're pals and all that stuff, right? But like, I've got my interests, I've got my objectives and goals I want to pursue. Maybe you've got yours. They're probably just, rubbing shoulders, Zach, with different billionaire clubs. But no, I definitely wouldn't read into that as there being some kind of rift or anything. This is just, hey, we both got a shot here to potentially win ownership of the Denver Broncos. May the best man win.
Yeah, and I think, like, to your point, I agree 100%. It's not personal, it's business. And I think that's what it comes down to for Elway and Peyton.
Yes. Mike, good to see you, my friend. He says, I don't care who the owner is. I just want whatever it takes to get back to winning football. Hashtag MHH, Denver Broncos for life. We feel you, big dog. We really do. Jeremy Kusich. What's up, buddy? He says, I listened to Dan Quinn for the first time last night. He is very engaging and clearly loves thinking about and talking about ball. Very interesting guy. Yeah, he is. The more you go down the rabbit hole of Dan Quinn, thank you, Jacob. Man, you're going crazy on the stars. We love it, dude. Keeping the lights on. The more you dig into Dan Quinn, the man, the coach, the more you like Dan Quinn. It's just going to happen for you, all right? Even you go right now. Let's say you've never watched a Dan Quinn presser. Go watch one. Your opinion right now of Dan Quinn, whatever it might be, will be augmented by that, all right? Things didn't end well for him in Atlanta, and he's got to answer for that on his next, go around. He's got to prove that he understands and recognizes how he squandered the later prime years of a franchise quarterback, and how come he couldn't fix that offense after Kyle Shanahan left. Like, that's what he has to, and there's other things about his coaching resume in Atlanta that fans like Scott, who grew up rooting for the Atlanta Falcons, drove them crazy. Just like, everyone, when your things aren't going great for your team, your coach, there will be peccadillos about them that drive you nuts, right? And Quinn had that. But there's also something to be said, and I'm going to grab Rodney here, Zach. There's something to be said for the second chance coaches. Mike Shanahan was a second chance coach. Got it right the second time. Gary Kubiak was a second chance coach. Got it right the second time. John Fox was a second time coach when he came to Denver. Almost got it right the second time, but he at least duplicated, what he did in Carolina, but in a more microwave time frame, right? It took him, well, I can't remember now off the top of my head how far into his Carolina career he was when he led him to that Super Bowl in 03, but I digress. My point being, you can't dismiss that experience. People learn more from the failure than they do from the success. So you got to believe that a smart, sharp, dynamic guy like Dan Quinn, he probably in retrospect now realizes exactly the forks in the road where he went left instead of taking the path to the right and what he'd do differently this time around.
I'll keep it brief about Dan Quinn. Guys, I wouldn't BS you about coaches. I keep it very, very real. I was not a Dan Quinn believer until this season, but you watch not just what he says and his energy, but what happens on the field. It's not talk. It's not Vic Fangio saying no death by inches and then losing games by kilometers. This is actual talk and action on Dan Quinn's part. His defenses play fast, they hit hard, they create turnovers. They did none of those things under Vic Fangio. So my preference for the Broncos not to hire Dan Quinn really has nothing to do with Dan Quinn. I think he'd be a fantastic coach for, again, Minnesota, even a team like Miami, Chicago, for a defensive-minded team. But the Broncos went in that direction twice now. If they didn't just fail with Vic or fail with VJ before that, I'd say give it a shot. But why not go with the newer trend? And you mentioned retread coaches succeeding. The new trend is first-time coaches succeeding. I think it's time for the Broncos to swing in that direction and see what happens.
I just worry the fates they'd be tempting if they went defense for a third straight time in the face of how the first two went. Rodney, hey guys, if the Broncos don't go after Rodgers or Wilson, would you guys go after Mitchell Trubisky? No way in Sam Hill would I. Let me tell you, here's what I say. If the Broncos swing and miss on Rodgers/Wilson, you look at the draft class. There are a couple intriguing prospects in this class. It gets, shade and clowned on a lot for being a shallow class. But there are a couple of guys. If the scouting department and George Peyton and that new head coach do not believe one of those guys, and one, Zach, that is reasonably within reach to them, the Broncos, is a day one upgrade over Drew Lock, then you go with Drew one last time. It's his rookie deal. You go get a Band-Aid insurance policy in the event that he gets hurt. And everyone knows, hey, it's a first-year head coach's honeymoon season. It's the last year on Lock's deal. No one's going to crucify that head coach if Lock doesn't do well because you came up short in the Rodgers sweepstakes or Wilson sweepstakes. And everyone knows it was not a great quarterback class, or at least that's what the common perception is. Makes too much sense almost, right?
Why are we talking about Mitchell Trubisky? No. Even if they hired Brian Daboll, who's his coach, I would say no. Just no. I would go for any other quarterback this offseason, maybe with the exception of Teddy Bridgewater over Trubisky. No. I did see, y'all have to stop catfishing us and trolling us because we got a super, I think it was, Chad, about Carson Wentz being released. And y'all always make me check Twitter to see if these rumors are true, and it's not true. I haven't seen anything. I don't think it's true, but
of course not. He's not going to be released. Why would they release Carson Wentz?
You got me again, though.
All right, Savage Boy Kev, the Twitch question of the night. Zach, can we take a second to think, what if Melvin Gordon didn't fumble? We had the Chiefs in the bag, man. That would have really made Locke turn heads. Absolutely. It's a dadgum shame.
What if?
Ifs and buts or candy and nuts, right?
I don't deal in what ifs. I deal in reality. And Melvin had 3 fumbles. He's an $8 million running back. I know he got hit as soon as the ball got to him, but just do your job there. I would say that for any player. If again, we hold one player to certain criticism, I won't name the player. We have to hold all players to that criticism. So that's the reality.
All right, Scott, I want to grab Dennis, and I see one here from Lawrence Rivera at 7:20. And then I don't know what else is left, but we got a rapid fire. So Dennis says, okay, did you see Georgia's Kirby Smart Monday night, jumping up and down, running down the sideline? I want a head coach with that kind of enthusiasm. Yes. Amen, dude. We need it. We need that juice. Lawrence, will Hackett be an Adam Gase if we don't get Aaron Rodgers, though? Rodgers likes to be in control of the field, and Hackett lets him, so I'm kind of hesitant there. It's a fair consideration. It's a fair concern. But remember, what did he do with Blake Bortles? People want to remember, Zach, that he ultimately got fired in Jacksonville along with that whole coaching staff. But think about what he was able to do with a guy who up to that point in his career was kind of viewed as a first-round bust. He ultimately, in retrospect, is viewed as a first-round bust. But this guy's coaching got him to just about the top of the mountain?
Take it from Aaron Rodgers, who said what he did in Jacksonville was legendary, getting it to within a quarter of the Super Bowl. You can look at it two ways. There's always the glass half full and glass half empty. He can be the next Adam Gase or he can be the next Sean McVay. You have to hire him to find out. Sounds familiar, doesn't it?
Phil McLaughlin says, hey guys, my business associates in Denver are telling me a former quarterback for the Broncos has had meetings with John Malone. Since his group already owns the Atlanta Braves, he knows what it means to own a team. Have you guys heard anything?
Insider scoop.
Haven't. I'm not going to lie to you. Addison, Manning as owner, Hackett as head coach, Mariota as a QB competition figure for Drew Lock. Zach, what would you think of that?
I don't know how much Marcus Mariota can push Drew Lock. I think that would be tilting it in Lock's favor. And if you bring him back, we don't know who the next head coach is going to be, how they feel about Lock, but you got to push him and make him earn the job if they're making it a competition. Mariota doesn't really do much for me.
Kevin Smith, great to see you, my friend. Appreciate you. He says, Indy just released Carson Wentz. Get ready for the Wentz to... Dude, I'm going to Google it now.
I think it was a fake account, someone said. I don't know how y'all fall for that either. Like, the fake Adam Schefter accounts, like, they're not verified. Just look at the follower count.
I'm going to read the spun.
There's no way. Zero chance.
All right. NFL World reacts to Tuesday's Carson Wentz news. This is from the Spun. The Indianapolis Colts went all in on Carson Wentz last offseason, trading away a second and first rounder. That said, he's not guaranteed the starting job. When asked if Wentz would be the team's starter in 22, Frank Reich said, we loved the team we had this year. We knew everyone was brought in this year. We expected to play winning football. Next year's roster will be next year's roster. I don't want to open it up about one player and then start talking about all of them. So because he didn't confirm 100% Carson's our guy next year, he's released. Yeah, it's not real, guys.
I liked you better as Silent Bob, Kevin Smith.
But you know what? Seriously, Kevin, you the man, dude. You the man. Carson Wentz trade, yeah, it's people just speculating on why Frank Reich wouldn't confirm for sure he's going to be the man this coming season. All right. Drew Love. I trust Peyton completely in choosing the right head coach for this team. Plus, it's an exciting offseason with the team now being up for sale, as well as nearly $50 million in cap room. All good things. This is an attractive destination, guys. Mays Jackson, another newer name. Welcome, thank you. I would want billionaire Jeff to own the team. We need, talking to Jeff Bezos, Amazon. We need deep pockets to fix structural issues of the organization. What do you think, Zach?
I don't know that I want. How would you characterize Jeff Bezos? I guess it depends on whatever aisle you fall on politically.
Dude, he's so rich, he's post-human. Like you.
Yeah.
What is this guy?
Same about Musk as well. I just don't want someone as, like, maybe that's the word, just so enigmatic or divisive as Bezos could be. I mean, there's billionaires out there that can afford Denver. I just don't want, Alexa Field at Mile High Stadium. I don't want the branding and all that goes along with it,
Yeah, for sure. Wilson the Ghost, last one, guys, and then we got to dip on out of here. Pardon me, Lawrence. Alexa, bring me a beer.
Bring me a win.
Yes. And let the offseason begin, says Wilson the Ghost. Bring back our identity with the zone run offense and a head coach that gives a darn. Hashtag Pookie MVP 2022. Well said, my friend. And can't think of a better way to end tonight's live stream, Zach.
You know what's so exciting, though? I mean, learning under Matt LaFleur and, with Aaron Rodgers, but what Getsy and Hackett have been a part of doing in Green Bay, if they can turn like Alan Lazard and Valdez Scantling into starting caliber receivers, can you imagine what they can do with Jerry Jeudy, Cortland Sutton, Noah Fant? That's what excites me, is what they can get out of the players that they have on the roster.
By the way, real quick, we're going to grab Nathan. Shout out to Rodney Garcia. Thank you for everything tonight, big dog. You've been a stud. Nathan says, does it matter the order in which the team is sold and when the coach is hired? Doesn't matter per se. I don't think so.
Coach is coming first, though.
But from a feasible timeline perspective, there's a lot of red tape to hop through. And, we talk about billions of dollars changing hands and fitting that with NFL rules and stuff. I just see that being a more sticky process, Zach, that'll take more time.
I think the soonest that's going to happen, the ownership, is March. The head coach could happen like a week from now or less even. So,
all right, guys, we got to go. We ran long. Zach, if you want to sign us out, I'll bring up Facebook.
Yes, sir. That was the Huddle Up podcast, guys. We appreciate tuning in with us on this Wednesday as we went over the Peyton versus Elway. The fans going to get the hashtags ready now for this battle chat. Be sure to follow us on Twitter at Huddle Up Pod. In the meantime, until we see you guys next time, which is tomorrow, follow the main account on Twitter at Mile Huddle. Actually go to huddleuppod.com and get yourself a hoodie, get yourself a football priest hat. A lot of cool stuff at huddleuppod.com. And if you haven't, if you want to support the brand even more, go to facebook.com/milehuddle. Hit that big blue button. Like I said, become a supporter, $5 a month. You get instant access to Kelberman's Corner, Broncos Book Club, which we talked about, and Trickle Zone each and every week. And if you haven't, facebook.com/milehuddlepod. And Apple Podcasts, guys, don't forget, leave your football priest a 5-star review for a chance to win some swag each and every month. But if you can't do those things, do these 3 things. Subscribe, like, and share this video and every video you see on the MHH channel. Helps us grow and reach more Broncos fans just like you.
I hate to be the bearer of bad news here, but the Facebook back end that allows us to see all the names that contributed to tonight's show, it's being weird and stingy. It's not showing it. So we might have to make that up to you guys. Dang it. So we'll make that up to you. As Zach said, subscribe, like, share. Those organic ways that you can support what we do, guys, they're worth their weight in gold. So if you like what you saw, even if you disagree with us on certain points or even all the points, do you respect the effort? Share it out there. Be sure to like the video, and we'll see you tomorrow night. It's going to be a great show.
And get yourself a Manscaped. Promo code MHH, don't forget.
20% off plus free shipping, baby.
That's right. Take care, guys, and as always, go Broncos.